right, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you so much for being here. It's really lovely to see you and to spend this time with you. My message today, when it gets pulled up, the topic is gratitude for the people in our lives. And I want to start with this quote. I'll read it first for you, and hopefully it'll come up on the screen in a minute. But this quote is from Psalms chapter 9, verse 1 and 2. I will give thanks to the Lord with my whole heart. I will recount all your wonderful deeds. I will be glad and exult in you. I will sing praise to your name, O Most High. And I asked for this offering song because it's been kind of tumbling around in my heart and mind the last few weeks, and I feel like it touches on something that we don't often make a main point of our religion or faith, and something we don't frequently talk about or spend enough time on, which is really gratitude for the people that God has put in our lives. When I listen to that song, the words, I don't know who I'd be if I didn't know you, I'd probably fall off the edge. And I think that if we just pause and reflect in our life, there's somebody who comes to mind for us. It might be our parents, might be a spouse, might be a mentor. And the beautiful thing about this song is that it can apply to whoever you are and whoever's in your life. There's somebody you can find who can apply to. It might be Jesus. It might be true parents. But I think, for myself, without the guidance that I received from my parents, the community that I grew up with, without the support and encouragement of my friends and of faith, a mentor, without a spouse who knows the inmost workings of my heart, we would be so lonely in life. We really need somebody. I think we really need somebody who gets us and who believes in us. Without Jesus or true parents to be an example and show us the way to go, how would we know the direction and purpose for our lives? I think there are many people who flounder throughout life because they don't have somebody they can look at as an anchor, as a guiding light. I touched on this a few weeks ago, but sometimes we feel like I am the center of the universe, and the things that I do and the things that I have are results of my efforts and my choices. And sometimes we get really egotistical, and sometimes we can get really down on ourselves about that too. But really, the best things in our life we didn't come across on our own, or we don't have because of our own efforts. I have a quote from our true father, Reverend Moon. He says, there are so many things for which we can be thankful to God. We are thankful for being men and women, and for being husbands and wives, and for the blessing of having children. We are thankful to be the instruments of the creative energy of the universe. If we have truly grateful hearts, will God be unhappy to look down at us? When you are thankful for being what you are, all nature will respond to you in happiness. In our school, something we started this year is we do a midweek mindfulness session where we put away all the computers and we gather on the rug and we do this breathing exercise. And sometimes they just giggle through it. Like, you're supposed to breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, and they're like, you know. But even so, there's a breathing and a rhythm that happens. And then after that, we have them pull out a gratitude journal and write down 3 things that they're grateful for, and for one of them to share why. And I don't go into their journals and read them, but I often hear them saying, you know, how do you spell my sister's name, you know, or I'm going to write down my mom, or I'm going to write down my family. And it's really beautiful that even the 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds, who maybe you would think their thing that they're most grateful for is their toys or some possession, even they know that the things that they're most grateful for in their life are the people that's in it. I know that for myself, I can often feel kind of frustrated with myself or stressed because I feel like there's so much that I want to do. And there's an impact that I want to make, and there's change that I want to see happen. And I often feel like I'm going slower than I want to go, or I'm limited by my own shortcomings or the skills that I haven't developed yet, or the smallness of my thinking. And I would say that they aren't untrue, but I also recognize that when I focus on those things, then I'm turning everything kind of inwards and thinking about myself. Even if my desire is to do things for others or to do more, to help more people, when I'm thinking about what my limitations are or what my role is in it only, I actually am turning it away from what I'm trying to impact and focusing on myself. And I also miss the opportunity to be in awe of all the blessings that I have in my life and thankfulness for the people in my life. When I had an experience this week where I discovered that things don't have to be great to be grateful. And it's very good timing. The marriage course is happening right now, and Pastor Mike and I did the marriage course like 6 years ago, and had such a good experience through it that we're like, we've got to bring this to everybody. We've got to offer this to the community, and we've been doing it 6 times since then, and many of you have gone through it, and if you haven't, I encourage you to when you have the chance. But even though we've done it and we've consistently seen the returns of having done it, we go through different phases of our life and different situations, and sometimes we find ourselves in a need to work through something new. And this past, what was it? It was just Thursday. Our marriage course happens on Friday, and Thursday it was a really long day. It was the end of the school week, and Pastor Mike hadn't slept well the night before, and we've been working all day. And at the very end of the night, we finally have some time together, and then we just got upset at each other. Which was really sad, because I think both of us were looking forward, like, okay, this is our time. But I was so, I felt like I had no more space or energy to think about anything else. And he was really tired, and we just couldn't meet each other at the same place. And we ended up just getting angry and, going to bed upset. And the amazing thing is, the next night at the marriage course, the topic of the night was the art of communication. But what was really beautiful about it was that before before they ask you to like work out your issues, first they ask you to appreciate about each other the things that they do well in listening. And so they listed all these different ways that we can be a good listener, or the ways, or maybe some ways that we sometimes fail at listening. And both Mike and I, as we're going down this list, we're like, well, in reality, like, you do a really good job at this. He's like, yeah, you do too. And when you listen to me, I feel like I am seen. And we didn't say this, but I actually felt myself like, the way you usually listen to me, I feel seen not just by you, but I actually feel seen by God too. I feel that I am more than what I just feel like I am when I'm on my own. And it was this kind of looking through this list of pitfalls that we usually avoid and things that we usually appreciate about each other, that I felt like it was just really heart-opening. And even though we were actually still in the middle of this kind of argument and fight that we hadn't resolved yet, it gave us space to then come together and talk about it without getting frustrated. But I feel like that's often how it is in our everyday life. We have things that we feel stuck in, or there's things that aren't going right, or our situation isn't great. And then that's what's so easy to notice and to observe and to focus on and to kind of get wrapped up in, and that just becomes the reality that we see, and it's really hard to see past that. But what was interesting is that nothing really changed in our circumstances during the marriage course. It was simply our focus shifted onto what we are grateful for about each other, that really opened up our hearts and allowed us to be a better, come to each other with a better heart. This is a quote from Thessalonians. Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you. And it's almost cliche, talk about an attitude of gratitude, or things could always be worse, so focus on the good. Or you have a house over your head, you have food you can put on your table. We have so much to be grateful for. But it's just hearing those things doesn't necessarily help us to feel those things, right? It can actually make us a little bit like, stop it, don't talk to me about that. You don't know what I'm really going through. You don't know what's really in my heart. You don't know what my situation really is. So it's not, and I understand that me giving a message is in some way the exact same thing. So I don't want you to feel like pressure, like, oh, I should be grateful. I'm struggling with this, and you're telling me I have to be grateful now. You're not helpful. But instead, maybe pause and, just without focusing on the negative things, just allow yourself to remember the goodness that has been poured into your life. Whether it's the blessing of your spouse, or maybe it's a spiritual parent, maybe it's the love of a child who loves you, even though we know we make many mistakes. I feel like it's the sinking in when we really just pause and allow ourselves to kind of wrap ourselves in that awareness of love that does exist for us, that there's a change that happens in our heart that then allows us to embrace others or to be grateful without our circumstances having to change. And when I think about it that way, I think about the values that were instilled in me by my parents and my faith community, for all those who poured into me throughout my youth, for my current family and community, and also just the understanding that none of that would exist at all without Jesus and true parents. When I think about it that way, I'm actually filled with a gratitude that's pretty overwhelming. And it's also funny to think that a lot of these people that I consider as having touched my life or having poured into me, I'm sure a lot of them don't think twice about it. They don't think, oh, remember that one time when I spent so much time with Adonia and I gave her so much love and attention. I'm sure for many of these people, it's just a passing moment in time, and it's just who they were, and they're not thinking about all the work that they did or something. And I feel like for me, I'm always looking for that. I want to give that. I want to change people's lives. I want to help people. But I think we sometimes underestimate the impact we can have in just a moment. But it usually has more to do with the heart that we come to the situation with than the things that we say or the things that we do. And I actually kind of get this feeling that when I'm frustrated with myself, when I'm focused inward, it must be a little bit insulting to God or a little bit dismissive of all of the love and heart that was poured into me by all these people throughout my life. And yet, that's so easily where we go. This is another quote by our founder. "We must be thankful to be born as men and women. We are the curators of God's own museum, the universe." Men have built their own museums, like the National Archives and the Museum of Natural History, but they are really trivial compared to God's own museum. All museums of the entire world put together cannot compare to the mystery and beauty of one living leaf. God created a living, growing museum, not one which is stagnant and collects dust. But if we can create in our lives the beauty of the love of God, then our museum is truly beautiful. I love going to museums. I love the Denver Museum of Nature and Science. I love the History Colorado Center. I love looking at the artifacts. I don't care if they're dusty. I think that they're so fascinating, and I love history. And yet this is just a collection of what has already been. And we are living in a museum of God's masterpieces of nature. But what True Father is saying here is that what is even more beautiful than the nature that God has created is the love that we share with others in our life. If we can be an instrument of God's love to the people in our life, and God can see that, that would be the most beautiful work of art of all. So for myself, for me, this message is one of those that's kind of for me, where I know that I need to pause. I need to set aside the things that I get stressed about or I get frustrated about and recognize the blessings in my life. And I can be told by everybody all the blessings in my life. I can even list them on paper and know that I'm blessed and not feel that I'm blessed. But it's really not in my mind, it's in my heart, right? It's in the opening my heart to remembering my parents' love, opening up my heart to experience the love of my spouse, even if maybe in this moment I'm not feeling it so much, but I have, right? I've touched God's love through my spouse, and I know it's there. And when I remember those, like through this little exercise we did in the marriage course, then it's not a mindset switch that happens. It's really like a heart-opening switch that happens. And I've found, surprisingly, that can change my whole perspective on everything that's going on in my life. When I'm thinking about the things that I'm frustrated about, I'm stressful about, somehow every situation becomes frustrating and stressful. My kids are arguing and it's frustrating and stressful. I was trying to work on my message last night. I was finally ready to like sit down, and then it's like 10:30 at night. I thought everybody in the house was asleep, but Annalise knocks on the door. I'm scared, Mom. There's shadows of the leaves on my room, and there's a monster on my ceiling. It's a fly. And I'm like, oh, okay, let's go, get you to bed. And then I get downstairs, and she turned on the light, and I see that she's used Sharpie, and she's marked on her dressers. And I'm like, oh, does it ever end with this girl? And it's like when I start to think that way, then I just see all these things that I'm frustrated about. And I'm like, eh. But also, I know that when I am truly present to the love that's already there in my life, that all of a sudden, I somehow have more space for forgiveness from my children. And rather than being stressed about all the impact I'm trying to make through school, and in these kids' lives' futures, instead, I'm just excited to be there with them and to see what happens today. What kind of conversation are they going to have that turns on a light switch in their mind to the possibilities? And it just becomes more of an exciting adventure rather than this like mission that if I have a step off to the side, there's going to be disastrous consequences. This is where my mind goes. But the circumstances don't change. It's really more about becoming present to the gratitude I have for the people in my life, the blessings in my life, knowing that where I am today and the things that I do have is not because of me. If I'm lucky, I've made some good choices that have allowed me to come here, but I'm certainly not the cause. Right? I'm grateful to God. I'm grateful to our two parents. I'm grateful to my parents. I'm grateful to my spouse. And I'm just more excited about life. So my challenge to you this week is maybe play this song, Lauren Daigle, Thank God I Do. You can find it on YouTube. Listen to it a couple times and discover who is it that comes to my mind. Who is it that without this person, I would have fallen off the edge long ago? And that will probably lead you to many other people. But don't just stay in the thinking about it. A really wonderful thing to do is to reach out to that person if you're able and to share your appreciation. And then to take that love that is rekindled and then share it with your family. So with that, I'm going to close today. Please join me in prayer. Heavenly Parent, good morning. Thank you so much for a beautiful, shiny Sunday and for all of those who are able to be here today. Some people walk across the street to get here, and some people have traveled across the ocean to get here. But you are present with each one of us. And I know that as you are here with us today, that your love is abundant. And you hope that we can receive that love. Your love is surrounding us in all ways, Heavenly Parent, through the beautiful sunshine and the leaves on the trees as they change colors are more intricate and more beautiful than any piece we could find in a museum. And we're surrounded by the evidence of your love. And I pray that even if we are in difficult circumstances, and there might be situations in our life that don't resemble your love, I pray that we can still focus on you. We can look beyond the things that are happening right in front of our face. We can look into our past and see where we have come from because of your love. And we can look to the future and see what your hope is for us through your love. And that we can look right in front of us, and even in the difficult circumstances, we can look at the faces of our parents and our siblings and our spouse and our children. And even if it's difficult, we can still see your love. Thank you so much for your patience with us as we go through the seasons of our life. Thank you so much for sending us the people who have touched us at the right moments, who have saved us from ourselves at times. And I pray that we can return that love to you and expand it outward in our life. And I offer this prayer in my name, Michael and Adonia Hendrick of Blessed Family. Amen and adieu. Okay, thank you.